Hi everyone, welcome to ELI, the place where you get your daily dose of inspiration for entrepreneurship. And today we have with us Mr. Rohit Taneja, who is the founder of Decentro, which is an API banking platform for financial integrations. Hi Rohit, welcome to ELI.
Hey everyone. Hey Priya. Good to be on the show.
I would request you to introduce yourself to our audience, please.
Sure, absolutely. Yeah. So brief on myself. This is my second venture. I've been in the domain of fintech for almost 7-8 years now.
Okay.
Started my journey with a peer-to-peer payments company called MyPool. This was back in 2014, which was very similar to Venmo, for people who are familiar with the US market.
Mhm.
And we essentially were solving the problem of money sharing among friends, right,
Okay.
in a very seamless and a fun. And that company got acquired by Wibmo, which is a global payments authentication player in 2017,
Okay.
and which further got acquired by PayU. So got a chance to work across diverse organizations across the fintech and the banking world over the
Mhm.
last few years. And I think one of the key problems that we noticed across the last, I would say, 6 years or so, is how painful working with the banks was. Right,
Okay.
like if you are a company and you want to integrate with a bank, it's like an extremely long and
Mm.
time-consuming process, which also consumes a lot of money as well.
Right.
So that is sort of the key problem that led to the birth of Decentro. That's a brief about myself. And yeah, on a personal note, I love reading books. Listening to podcasts, listening to music as well, and yeah, looking forward to sharing more details along the show.
Yeah. Can you tell us more about Decentro in
Mhm.
terms of what is the technology at play and what all
Sure,
products and services we provide to our customers?
sure, sure, absolutely. Yeah. So at a broad level, what we're doing is we're solving for this banking as a service software layer, right? What that
Mhm.
means is, let us say, if you're a fintech which is launching a new product in the market, or if you're an existing player that wants to launch a particular new fintech product in the market, right?
Mhm.
What ends up happening is typically in the old world, you have to go through the banking cycles, right, of integration.
Right.
And that is what leads to, a whole, I would say, can of worms, like in terms of multi-department coordination, multiple approvals required, opening
Mm.
of a nodal account or an escrow account, right, depending on the use case, so on and so forth.
Mm.
So we realized that, okay, if we build a software layer on top, right, which basically gives you very easy to consume APIs, right,
Okay.
and you can essentially use those APIs
Mhm.
directly to connect with these respective banking products, right? That is sort of how decentralized structured. So on a company level, you essentially can choose between multiple modules that we offer. It's
Mhm.
very similar to the way AWS operates. So if you go to like a hosting provider like Amazon, you can essentially choose what you want from them. Right? You can
Mhm.
choose database, you can choose VPNs, you can also choose even domain names, routing, those kind of things. Same way here, we have diversified this banking stack and broken it down into components, and we're taking them one by one, to offer it to our customers. So you can choose from, say, payments product, you can go to a KYC product, you can also go to a card issuance, so on and so forth.
Mm.
That's a very broad overview of what we do.
Tell us about the different modules as you mentioned a few of them. Can
Mm-hmm.
you give us a comprehensive list of
Mm-hmm.
modules
Sure,
that you
sure.
offer?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So let's take the payments one, right, which is our most popular one. So what we do is we give an API first approach, right, to companies, where what they can do is they can essentially create these unique virtual accounts
Mhm.
for each and every consumer or each and every business for collecting money. So it's like a bank-to-bank payment, which is automatically reconciled and API, right? That's the first level. And then the second level is your bank-to-bank payouts, right?
Okay.
Using your national rails of IMPS, NEFT, RTGS, and those kind of things, right? That's how typically how the collections and the payouts product work from a
Mhm.
payments module perspective. Similarly, if you look upon, say, our account issuance product or the accounts product per se, what we
Okay.
do there is, let us say if you are a neobank, right,
Mhm.
and you want to issue new current accounts to the companies, or you want to issue new savings accounts to consumers, right?
Mhm.
So we ride on top of these respective banks across the spectrum, and then we offer these services
Mhm.
from an account issuance and a linking perspective. Yeah.
Okay. Uh, Can you also share a perspective on how the banking industry is evolving, especially after COVID, when the fintechs are on
Mhm.
the rise, and uh,
Mm-hmm.
traditional banks have become more of a back-end
Mm-hmm.
infrastructure than providing
Mm-hmm.
services to consumer. So where is the industry
Mm-hmm.
going, and where do you envision the industry to be in next 5 or 10 years?
Mm-hmm. Sure, sure, absolutely. Um, yeah, so I think from a banking industry perspective, the first thing that's happening is there are a lot more innovations that are coming out, right? Which is not from the banking world, but more from I would say, the fintech world, right? Where fintechs are coming in and saying, okay, this is a new product that we want to launch out in the market. And the good thing is they've seen these products work, in some market or other, and essentially they want to replicate it in a different setting, right? That is one. Second is, which are completely new ideas, which are not related to, say, anywhere in the world, but more like going into tier three, tier four area, right? And solving for that side of the market. Right? That's one leg as well. And then from the banking side, I think what's happening is, till now, at least over the last few years, most of the banks did not understand what an API is or how an API can benefit them, or their business. But I think with the likes of Yes Bank, ICICI, a few of these which have, I would say, been in the market for a while now when it comes to
Mm,
API, and they also want some of our, top bank partners as well. What has ended up happening is these banks have now become more aware and very
mm,
cognizant from a fear of missing out effect, right? So it's like a classic competition that's happening between the banks,
okay,
where the banks want to learn from each other and they want to make sure that they're not missing out on, the
mm,
latest trends. So I think that what that is leading to is the banks are opening up more and more APIs, right, from their side. Right?
okay,
And even the banks which are not aware are now getting into the game.
okay. Uh, would love to understand how it all started, uh,
Mhm.
how the platform started, and what were the initial few round of APIs that we built to offer our
Mhm.
customers, and
Mhm.
who were the
Mhm.
first few customers who came to our platform?
Sure, sure, absolutely. Yeah. So I think if you look at the starting of the product, the first product that we launched was actually the collections and the payouts ones. The second one was the KYC, which came in around, I think, September, October last year, last to last year, 2020. Yeah. And the first set of customers that came in were primarily marketplaces. That was the first category that we saw. So they
Mhm,
had a clear problem that, okay, they wanted to do collections for a particular use case, and they also wanted to do payouts,
mhm,
for a similar use case. Um, so this is basically a buyer and seller, on two sides
mhm,
of the network. That's exactly what they were solving for from a marketplace effect. So those are the first categories. The second categories were companies in the neo banking space, or like your new age neo banks that are there in the market.
mhm,
So one of them, for example, was FanPay. Right? FanPay is a popular teenage neo bank, right, which has come into India.
mm,
Um, and what they're solving for is, okay, can we make banking and finance easier for teenagers? you know
okay,
can we make it simple enough for them, so that they can start their investment journey, their saving journey, their spending journey? Because what you realize is, by default, finance is a subject which is not taught, in the
mm,
schools
mm,
anyway, like personal finance, right? So that's something they're solving, for these users. So those are the next category of users, the companies that came, and then now we have many more categories as well.
okay. Uh, so one thing I'm curious about is the
Yeah.
banks have their own API. So why not the fintech platforms are going to banks and direct
Sure.
accessing the APIs?
Sure. Yeah, I think that realization comes in when start interacting with the bank.
Hmm.
So let's take the scenario, right? When, let us say, you're a new fintech and you want to go to a bank. What will first happen is the bank will, first of all, have a huge skepticism in terms of whether they even want to expose their APIs to you or not, right? Because if you look at from a bank's perspective, the bank is a very regulated entity, right? It's
Mm,
a heavily regulated entity, and RBI can crack down on them, anytime they want. So the banks are very careful on the partners that they choose. That's number one. So they'll be very skeptical of you. They'll try to understand each and everything about your business, your funding, your directors, your origin, your shareholders, your business model, your revenue potential, your user base, right? Everything, like end to end. Now, imagine that you have to do that with a bank, and the bank moves at its own, usual pace. And it's not just one person who is interacting. There are multiple departments in the bank who will interact with you. So this process easily can take anywhere from 3 months to 4 months. That's the bare minimum that it takes. And even when you do that, then finally you reach a stage where you get the APIs from the bank, but the bank will impose a lot of restrictions on that. And at the same time, you will be dependent on that bank always at any point of time,
Right.
right? Which is a huge problem, because as a company, you do not want to be in a situation where, okay, your banking APIs are cut off due to whatever
Mm.
XYZ is, right? So that's why companies come to us.
Okay. What is the current scale of operation at Decentro in terms of how many clients or
Mhm,
what is the volume
mhm,
transaction that gets processed on a
mhm.
day-to-day basis?
Yeah. So we have now 120 signed up customers,
Mhm.
which have, these are all paying companies which have started from day one. And we process close to a little more actually than 2.2 or 2.3 billion dollars
Okay.
on an annualized basis in terms of transaction value, and roughly around close to, I think, 5 or 6 million. No, actually, it's more now. Yeah, 7 million. API hits. Yeah, on a monthly basis. Yeah.
Okay. What are the different challenges that you have faced so far while building and growing this venture?
Mhm. Right. I think the first one is like getting, I would say, the bank partnerships, right? So that's something which is definitely important, definitely key to us. So the good thing is that, given our track record, and given not only the company's track record but also our personal track record as a founder, as an entrepreneur,
Mhm.
um, that gives a lot of satisfaction to the banks.
Okay.
So that is one which really helps them. Um, the second one is, when you are a new player in the fintech industry, right, and especially in the infrastructure space,
Mhm.
right, it's extremely important that the companies are able to trust your infrastructure, right?
Okay.
So you need to show that scalability, you need to show that resilience, right, from an infrastructure perspective. So
Mhm.
that's the second thing. These are the two key things which I would say are things that we really think about on a daily basis, and we make sure that we do justice to
Any pivots that you have done to your business model?
that. Not pivots, I would say, because the ambition was always to be an API banking player.
Mhm.
I think what we've done is we've done additions. So there are, for example, KYC and payments were always on the cards.
Mhm.
Card issuance was something we never thought of early on, but there was a lot of demand in the market which was being unfulfilled, and we realized, okay, this can be and a high ROI and a valuable segment where we can enter, and we can move with the same speed that we do with KYC and payments. So that was the second addition. Yeah.
Okay. Any growth hacks that you have discovered and
Mm-hmm.
successfully applied for rapidly acquiring
Mm-hmm.
customers or users?
Mm-hmm. Right. Yeah. So in our case, it's not a B2C business, and it's a B2B business. So in our case, it's really the companies that are using us.
Mm.
Um, So in a B2B business, growth hacks are rarely heard of, and I'll be surprised if a B2B business really goes on growth hacks. And
Mhm.
mostly it's I would say, it has to be a well thought out, strategy from a acquisition perspective. The
Mhm.
good thing is, in our case, the demand is extremely high from the customer side, the company's side. Um, and in fact, we're now in a position where we have to say no to some customers,
Mm.
purely because they're asking something which we do not have the bandwidth to fulfill, at the moment. So even those cases happen. But yes, I think the best way, and like the best growth, ideology in this case is just to make sure that you satisfy the customers, like, very heavily, and you make sure that you work with them as partners so that they can refer more and more people.
Okay. What is the vision you have for next 5 to 10 years for Decentro?
Yeah. So in the next 5 to 10 years is a very long time frame. I think in the 5 to 10 years time frame, we should most likely be a public company, right? And we are growing towards that path only. The way we have seen the growth and the way the demand is coming into the market, I think, yeah, it's like all about just channeling it well and making sure that we are able to grow along with the growth of this market. So yeah, that's I would say the number one thing for the company right now, to make sure that we are resilient, and we are able to do justice as a public company whenever
Mm.
we do an IPO.
For the next part of the interview, we'll proceed towards the personal side of being an entrepreneur. As an entrepreneur, you are expected to stay energetic and consistent over time. And when you lose focus, you or your business may suffer. So, can you tell us
Hmm.
how do you deal with situations where you lose focus, or you may feel tired, restless, or you're not able to
Mhm.
go on?
Right. Absolutely. Yeah, I think that happens with everyone. I think the first one is you really need to make sure that you're doing what you really love, right? So that's something that takes care of like a lot of things. Then you feel burnout a lot less
Mm-hmm.
because pretty much you're enjoying what you're doing. So I think that's something which is really important and heavily underappreciated by a lot of people. So that's one, and this is the reason why entrepreneurs are able to put in so many hours into the work, because they're really enjoying what they do. I think at the same time, yeah, you should definitely have a routine. Like, it should not be that you're just working like pretty much just the moment you wake up, even before you sleep. You need to make sure that you have a fairly good unwind cycle and a fairly good morning cycle as well,
Mm-hmm.
and it makes a lot of difference. Which again, a lot of young people do not appreciate when they're starting out for the first time.
Mm-hmm.
So I think, yeah, that's these are two main things that really, I would say, if you do it well, basically love what you do and make sure that you have a routine in place. That takes care of a lot of the discipline level things. And at the same time, I think having a hobby which is outside your work,
Mm-hmm.
right? So that's really, I would say, a good way to unwind. Could
Okay.
be anything. So for a lot of people, it could be traveling, it could be reading, right?
Mhm.
It could be dancing as well. Yeah.
Okay. Also, can you tell us how do you manage your time? Especially, can you tell us how does your
Hmm.
calendar look like on a typical day?
Hmm. Hmm. Sure. Yeah. There's actually no typical day, so it's always variable, depending on the day, right? And depending on the needs of the business.
Okay.
So there are days when pretty much I would say, I'm on calls for more than 60% or 70% of the time. And then there are days where there's hardly one call, but I'm in a deep focus mode, in terms of wrapping up some presentations, or thinking about roadmap, or designing a particular product flow with the product team, and those kind of things. Yeah. But I
Mhm.
try to spend more time as much as possible to close to the product. That's the one which we enjoy the most. Yeah.
Okay. A big part of entrepreneur's life is about hiring people who can take his or
Hmm.
her vision forward. So, how do
Yeah.
you go about finding the right people for your venture?
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. I think a network is the most powerful thing here, right? In hiring. So the most important thing is just like try to leverage your network as much as possible.
Mhm.
First degree connections, second degree connections. That's one. And the second one is you need to make sure that you create a brand strong enough to attract people, right?
Mm.
Instead of chasing after them, it's very important that people come to you. Right? So that's what we really aspire for. And I think that has really served us well.
Okay. Out of multiple people who may be interested to be part of your journey, how do you know that
Mhm.
from, let's say, two people, how do you know that one person is right for your
Mhm.
venture and one is not? What are the traits
Mhm.
or qualities do you
Mhm.
look for in people who come and join you?
Sure. Sure. Yeah, I think the key quality that we look for first and foremost is your resilience and hunger, right?
Mhm.
So how resilient you are, and how strong you are under situations of pressure. Um, that's something which is very important.
Okay.
The second is your hunger, right? So are you ready to take on, new challenges? Are you ready to learn things that you're not aware of?
Mhm.
That's one of the key qualities as well.
How would you define the term entrepreneur? What is the meaning of entrepreneurship for you?
Hmm. I think entrepreneur is anybody who wants to solve a problem and takes that initiative. Like it's really as simple as that. It could be a problem within a company, right? It could be a problem within a society, within a state, right? Um, it could be creating a new entity, right? That you want to solve that problem with. I think the medium is irrelevant. It could be through any medium, but yes, like as long as you are taking that initiative, I think that is what really justifies being called an entrepreneur. Yeah.
Okay. My final question to you, tell
hmm
us about the lessons you have learned as an entrepreneur, which we can take away and apply to our ventures.
hmm Sure. I think there are many of them. The first one is like, do not jump into a problem just because it is a cool idea or it's a cool space to be. I think there's a lot of FOMO, between people as well,
Mm,
where people see, okay, that there's somebody who's trying to solve, XYZ in an
mm,
ABC market. They
mm,
just copy that or just try to do that, right?
mm,
I think that's really the wrong way of doing it. Like, I think that urge to solve and that problem should come from within, right? You should
mhm,
feel that pain yourself, I would
mhm,
say. Preferably, you should solve it for yourself first, right? So that's the, I would say, the most important lesson, that
mhm,
I would like anybody to take away. Then of course there are small like, I would say sub lessons around, say, how do you really stay focused? How do
mm,
you really make sure that you have a good team around it? So your environment makes a lot of difference. Make sure that really have the right ecosystem to support you when you start out.
mhm,
Do not start in a place where you feel there's no support ecosystem. Like if that means shifting city from A to B, do that.
mhm,
Make the shift. That's really, really important. There is a reason why cities like Bangalore, Bombay, and Delhi have become ecocenters, right? Because there's so much ecosystem support out there.
mm.
So I think that's really another important point, which people underestimate. Your environment, your city, your location makes a very, very important difference from where you start. Yeah.
Okay. On this note, I think we have come to the end of the
Mhm.
session. I think it was a great pleasure to host you here at TLI. Thanks for your time, Rohit, and our best wishes for Decentro.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Priya. Great chatting.